You believe a week ago we were getting ready for the NFL draft to start?
Wow. Yeah, that's true. It's been a week. Today's Thursday. It was a week ago tonight.
Yeah, it's
A lot
amazing.
transpired since then. It's really crazy how much happens in this just 3-day period. You basically reshape your franchise in a span of like 72, I guess 76 hours or so. It's pretty wild.
Yeah, pretty wild. But we're kind of moving on from the draft a little bit. This is the Eagle Eye Podcast presented by Nissan. He's Ruben Frank. I'm Dave Zangaro. Exciting time, though. This weekend, the Eagles have all their rookies in town for their rookie camp. So it's the first chance to see Quinyon Mitchell in the Eagles jersey, to see Cooper DeJean, to see Jalix Hunt. We won't see a lot, to be honest with you. It's not like we're out there for an entire training camp practice, but it's the first time, and that's exciting.
Yeah, and you just kind of see what they look like in their jersey and everything and running around. It's fun, kind of turning the page. Not going to do any hitting. It's just kind of a walkthrough type, I guess, really elevated walkthrough. But yeah, you kind of start to see the whole thing come together.
Yeah, and it's a chance for them to be in the building and be on the field, just the rookies before the veterans join them for OTAs later in the month. So I like that the NFL structures it this way. The Eagles are one of two teams having it this weekend. It seems like most teams opted for the following week, but I like the idea of just letting the rookies kind of learn the building, get some time with each other before they become the small fish again.
Yeah, I think it gives them some confidence. It gives them kind of a sense of belonging, and they get time with their coaches, with their position coaches, pretty focused on them and nobody else. So I think it's pretty valuable time.
Yeah, I do too, and we'll see about these players, and I think we have some thoughts about which guys we really want to watch once we get to training camp. So we talked about this a little bit. Which players to you kind of stand out that you can't wait to see finally on the field when we get there?
And I'm going to ask everyone a favor who's watching or listening. Don't tweet to Dave and me and ask who looks good. Because
yeah, sometimes you don't really know, like right off the bat, who's going to look good and who's going to look bad. And sometimes you get in that trap a little bit.
Yeah, we won't really be able to comment on that until training camp. Then you see him through the whole session in one-on-ones with pads on. That's when you really start to kind of sort out who can play and who maybe needs some work. But it is fun to see him. But I think the guy, look, obviously the young corners you want to see, but Jalix Hunt is a guy that I'm really, really curious about. And yes, he is a developmental guy. Yeah, he's kind of a long-range project, Houston Christian, but I want to see what he looks like. I want to see what his, we hear about his energy and his get off, and those are things you can see right off the bat. So I think he's the guy that I really want to kind of keep my eyes on throughout this whole off season.
I took a minute this morning and I kind of listened through some of the New Heights podcast just to see if they talked about the draft picks. And I found it interesting that Jason Kelce mentioned that, with offensive linemen, when they would bring a new offensive lineman in, he felt like he had a pretty good sense of whether or not they could play almost immediately.
Yeah.
So it's kind of fun to think that like the players who have been doing this a long time, they know almost immediately. And that's why like last year when like, and they always try to not like hype up rookies for good reason, I think. But it was like last year, all the players saw in Jalen Carter immediately. And they saw it to the extent that like after a while, they couldn't contain themselves anymore. They had to talk about it.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that about Kels. And yeah, I wonder if people like in other lines of work can do that. Like, you hire somebody new in your building and whatever job you have. And like, after one day, this guy just isn't going to work out. Does that work in sports writing? Probably. I remember Kelce telling me about one offensive lineman after one day. He said, he can't play.
Yeah, it goes the other way too, a little bit sometimes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Although he said there are times like normally and it was interesting that the way he like framed it. He said normally like you can tell if a guy has it. And sometimes he would be wrong if he thought a guy didn't have it because maybe they're unorthodox and like it doesn't pop the way he expected to pop, but they like figure out a way to make it work for them. He said that happens sometimes, but for the most part, you can tell. And look, I think it's just the nature of professional sports. Like there are athletic tools a player needs to have to be successful, and sometimes they either have them or they don't.
Yeah. It's just another reason, Kelsey is like a genius. I mean, he's just like next level and that's why he's going to be so good on TV, because he just sees the game like nobody else I've ever been around. I mean, he's just the way he innately knows what teams are thinking, what players are frauds, but he just has this incredible perception, and I don't think he's ever wrong. But yeah, it's I certainly am. I mean, there's been guys that I think are going to really look. Look, Nolan Smith's not a finished product, and he might have a big year and have 12 sacks this year, but I thought he was going to have a really, really good rookie year. I mean, from what we saw in camp, I would have said 6 sacks, 30 snaps a game. It just didn't happen. So we're all wrong at some point.
Yeah, I wouldn't chalk that up as a wrong just yet.
No, and I'm not, but I thought his rookie year he'd make more of an impact. I'm not saying he won't moving on, but I thought he was going to have a pretty good rookie year.
Yeah, that's fair. So I should mention later in the show, we'll look through the NFC East drafts. We haven't done that yet. A fan favorite running back is no longer here, so we'll chat about Boston Scott in a little bit, and we'll go through the undrafted guys. But to answer that first question, like which rookies I'm excited to watch, obviously after the first and second round picks, which I think we're all excited about. I agree with you on Jalix Hunt. Anais Smith is another guy I want to watch because I think he can contribute a little bit, and I think Trotter probably fits in that mix too. But Anais Smith to me is someone that I like of the day 3 picks. I'm probably most excited about him, and that doesn't mean he's going to contribute the most. I think Trotter probably has the route to be the biggest contributor of the day 3 picks, but
he does have that route.
He does. So yeah, I think those guys are the most exciting.
Yeah. And as far as Cooper DeJean, I'm excited just to see, I'm just intrigued to see where he is, where he lines up. And I still think they think of him. I don't know if they take him at number 40 if they don't see him as a outside corner, but he won't be from the get-go. He's certainly not with the ones. So I'm curious to see if he does have a role. And this is a training camp question more than a now question, but if he's not out there as an outside corner with the 2s, I want to see where he fits in with the 1s, if he does.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I think they believe that he can play outside corner, but you look at that. I mean, it's tougher to find a spot for him at outside corner, and I think they want to play him immediately. I think he's good enough right now to contribute. So now you're like, all right, well, if he's not going to be starting outside, where can he play? And I think we've talked about it a little bit, but like in the nickel at times, I think it's safety at times. And I think you can try to carve out a role for him where he play, like even if everyone else is healthy, he still plays, 20 snaps a game.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess I'm just really intrigued where those 20 snaps are going to come, how they're going to find that role.
It was fascinating. Danny Palmel's interviewed Kirk Ferentz from Iowa, and he actually said that if Cooper DeJean came back for a senior season, they were going to really implement him on offense. They were going to give him like 15 to 20 snaps per game on offense, in addition to all of his work on defense and special teams.
Well, you see what he does with the ball in his hands. I mean, he had 4 touchdowns in college, I think 3 interceptions and a punt return.
Should have had another punt return.
Yeah, that was a terrible call. I think they called him for a fair catch that he didn't call, right?
Yeah, they said he called for a fair catch, or he was trying to clear out his teammates.
Yeah, he was like pointing, and I mean, yeah. But anyway, really 5 touchdowns. But once he has the ball in his hands, I mean, he's a real weapon. So I could see that. Maybe, heck, Kellen Moore and Kirk Ferentz, a little conversation here about that.
Unlikely. I think they got to teach him defense first. But we've seen Slay get some snaps on offense.
It took a while, and I think the last thing you want to do is clutter a kid's mind with offensive plays. But there might be a time where that happens.
Yeah, down the line. And the Eagles have some pretty.
And he was a quarterback, right? In high school.
In high school, he was a quarterback. Yeah.
So he can throw. I mean, we think he can throw. We've seen former quarterbacks, Lane Johnson, who can't throw. But
you don't think Lane can throw?
He says he couldn't. Who was the guy? Was it T.J. Edwards?
T.J. Edwards, yeah.
Right. He's like, I played quarterback in high school, but I can't throw. We ran all the time.
Yeah, they had triple option offense.
Yeah, but in any case, Cooper's a really intriguing guy. So yeah, he's certainly at the top of that list too.
Okay, so when they get to rookie camp, before we get to the undrafted guys, I don't know if we've talked about John Ross. What do you make of him getting the rookie camp invite, the former first round pick?
Yeah, anybody who can run like he can run, certainly, I guess, worth bringing in for a look. I think he's a pretty long shot because it hasn't worked out for him yet, but nothing to lose.
It'd be fun to watch him, see if he has any of that speed left.
Yeah. Yeah. The odds of him actually ever helping this team are slim, but anytime you have a guy that can run, bring him in. Let's see what he can do.
Yeah, we've always seen them try to find cheap speed. Going back to remember TJ Graham and Bryce Treggs, and they're trying to find some cheap speed. They found it. They thought in Quez Watkins in the 6th round. They're always trying to find it. Yeah, not quite to that level, but sure, cheap speed is worthwhile. You never know.
Bryce Treggs was on that. I did that. I guess it was during the Olympics. I was putting together a 4x2 team, an Eagles 4x2 team, and he was on. Ronald Darby was the anchor because he ran in the World Juniors in 200. Nate Gary was trying to claim a spot on that team. He said he ran some pretty fast times in high school, but yeah, I don't remember the other legs. I'm gonna work on that. Anyway, I'll stop talking about track now.
I like you said, I'm going to work on that. You haven't been continuously working on that.
My life's ambition, yeah. But anybody, those guys love talking about track. I mean, they love talking about any other sports that they were good at. So yeah, once you have track in your blood, Dave, it never leaves.
All right, let's get to the undrafted guys. We know 6 names.
Devin Allen ever ran a 200. All right, go ahead.
We know 6 of the 7 names based on reports. We'll get the full list when these guys are out at rookie camp. But I wanted to go through the names we do know. Some interesting names in there, and I want to get your take on which guys you think might be able to have a chance to make the team or might be worth keeping around on the practice squad and developing a little bit. I'll start with Gottlieb Ayedje from Maryland. Offensive lineman, played at Frostburg State, but finished his career at Maryland, 6'4", 308. I'm using the beast Dane Brugler here, had him as a 5th, 6th round pick. A guy who, people thought was going to get drafted. And basically when you get to this point, it's Stout. Who do you want?
Yeah, exactly. They've found a handful of offensive linemen who are undrafted who've a guy like Sua ended up starting some games, bunch of games. Other guys have kind of been in and out, on and off the roster and the practice squad. But I think it's a position where, especially with Stout, you can find guys undrafted, and they've done that. So certainly you got to keep an eye on.
So when we watch this rookie camp this weekend, we know some undrafted guys are going to be out there. A 7-man class. We know 6 of those names based on some reports out there. So I figured we would just go through the names we know.
Yeah, let's see what we got.
All right. So the first one, in no particular order, is Gottlieb Ayedje from Maryland. Dane Brugler from The Athletic. I'm using the Beast, which is the best pre-draft tool there is. Had him as a 5th, 6th round pick. Played just 1 year at Maryland, 4 years at Frostburg State, 6'4", 308 pounds. He's 24, so a little bit older for a developmental prospect, but I don't know. I mean, if you're looking for an undrafted offensive lineman, going to Philly is a pretty good option.
Yeah, I don't think there's a better place to go if you're a guy like him, where you're going to have Stoutland and you're going to have a GM that is open to keeping undrafted offensive linemen. They've kept a bunch of them over the years. So, um, Sua ended up starting a bunch of games. Other guys have here and there. I've gotten some playing time. So you're going to get a fair chance, if nothing else, and you're going to learn. Even if you never play here, you're going to learn from Stout, and that makes it worthwhile. So anytime you see one of these guys, uh, you're like, and I think there's another. I think they signed two linemen. The guy's got a shot, if not of making the team or being on the practice squad. He's going to get better in the time that he has here.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Sua, but there's like Nate Herbig, Coyote Awasika, which is
Who's
like,
now a starter in the league.
yeah, that's a pretty solid track record when it comes to undrafted offensive linemen. Ayeje, just looking at the physical makeup and the athleticism, ran a 5.01, had a broad jump of 9.4, which is pretty impressive. And that's the Eagles like their jumpers on the offensive line. I think that's pretty indicative of just like the power that a player has and like the explosion. So I understand why they like the traits here.
Yeah, I'm always intrigued at a transfer. Like, it's kind of like Cornell to Houston Christian for Jailers. You're going from Frostburg, and nothing against Division III football, because I was Ohio Wesleyan. I mean, it's not exactly BCS powerhouse, although we did beat Ohio State the last time we played them. But I'm intrigued by Frostburg to Maryland. Geographically, they're very close, but football-wise, so like, what did this guy look like at Frostburg? Like, how much was he dominating defensive linemen? It's interesting to me. But yeah, he's just by the nature of position and his coach, he's going to have a shot.
Yeah, and the other offensive lineman, like you mentioned, is Anim Denkwa from Howard, 6'8", 349 pounds. So at least from a physical stature, like he fits the mold a little bit.
Yeah, huge dude, and doesn't always mean a lot, but you can't teach size. So intriguing guy.
Yeah, Dane Brugler had him as a 7th rounder, a priority free agent. He ends up going undrafted. So, yeah, but tools there. Move on to one of the more intriguing ones, Gabe Hall, defensive tackle from Baylor. Brugler had a 4th round grade on him. Kind of a unique body type for a defensive tackle, 6'6", 294. So kind of long and slender. Slender is 294, but like for the height, certainly long and slender. Had 12 and a half sacks in his college career. I think mostly probably a 3 technique, but yeah, interesting guy there.
Yeah, and just reading up on him, I don't know. Did you mention Baylor? You probably did.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if we want to stay away from Baylor guys, but yeah, I mean, he was kind of looked at as a 4th or 5th round pick by almost everybody. So you're getting some value here as an undrafted guy. And look, every year there's a couple guys that just, for whatever reason, they are projected to be, early day 3 type guys, or even day 2 guys, and they just fall by the wayside. They just slip through the cracks. So just get these guys that are projected to be day 3 or even late day 2 picks, and they just slip through the cracks for whatever reason. You get a 4th round talent, 4th, 5th round talent as an undrafted guy. That's great value no matter what happens. So not sure there's a roster spot at that position. There could be, and you never know what's going to happen with injuries or whatever. But he's an intriguing guy. You got a potential 4th round pick that pretty much every analyst agrees is a potential pro, and you get him for nothing. That's a good day's work.
Yeah, and look, I mean, clearly he wasn't a mid-round pick for a reason, though. He went undrafted, so you don't want to like lose sight of that. Apparently had a good Senior Bowl. We know the Eagles care about that part of this process maybe more than most teams. They've consistently drafted and signed Senior Bowl guys, and apparently he was very good in Mobile. So yeah, I think, and they've had some success with undrafted defensive tackles here and there. Go back to Bruce Hector. I know Trayvon Hester wasn't undrafted, but he was like kind of a scrap heap guy that ended up getting some playing time here.
Hollis Thomas played here 10 years, undrafted out of Northern Illinois. So, yeah, I think it's a position where a guy like that has not a good chance, but has an honest chance.
Okay. Next one is Andre Sam, the safety from LSU, transferred to LSU in 23, an older prospect. He's 25, but
he'll be 26 when the season starts. Yeah, he went to McNeese and Marshall, I think.
Yeah, so he kind of bounced around a little bit, a bit of a late bloomer. Yeah, obviously the age scares you. That's probably a big reason he goes undrafted. People aren't trying to draft a 25-year-old even now. But I mean, safety is a position where, I don't know, like by pure position only, like if you're just listing the safeties, they don't have a lot of them.
Yeah, and he was actually pretty productive his 1 year at LSU. I think he had 3 picks last year. So he's produced at the highest level. I think he was in college 7 years. I think he had 7 total years where he was on a college campus going back to his true freshman year. So, yeah, he's an older guy, but experience is valuable. So you're not going to draft a 26-year-old middling defensive back, but you bring him in here and see what he can do.
Yeah, I think he could be like a tone setter in terms of like hitting. He comes up and he'll hit you. Now, some of that maybe is because he's 25 and he's going up against like 19-year-olds, but yeah, a little curious to see him.
Yeah, and I could see him looking really good in these type of situations just because of that experience. And I mean, you're around that long, you've seen it all.
Yeah, we talked about Reed Blankenship a few years ago. You know, comes in and had all that experience at the college level, a 5-year starter, a rare 5-year starter, and it showed right away as an undrafted kid that he was going to have a chance to be something.
Yep, no doubt.
What do you make of Kendall Milton from Georgia, the running back? Kind of a different style running back than they really have on the roster. 6'1", 225. He's not going to catch many balls out of the backfield, but I don't know. He could be a fun little option if they want to keep him around.
Yeah, he's got that size. You're right. He doesn't catch the ball or hasn't caught the ball. But, yeah, most likely he's just a guy who's just kind of camp legs. But, I mean, that whole position is pretty interesting. And we'll talk about Boston not being here. Gainwell has a year left. And you know, and then Saquon. So I think it's a position in a little bit of flux. And obviously they drafted a guy who they seem to really like. But this guy's going to get a lot of chances. I mean, you're going to get reps if you're a running back just because they're going to protect Saquon and probably protect Gainwell a lot. So we'll get a good look at him and he'll get a chance to show what he can do.
And then the last one is McAllen Castles, the tight end from Tennessee. 6'4", 244 in 2023, had 22 catches for 283 yards and 5 touchdowns.
Yeah, a position where there's a job there, possibly. He's probably not the guy that's going to get it, but yeah, we'll see.
All right, if you had to pick one of those 6 players most likely to be on the initial 53-man roster, who are you going with?
It would be Gabe Hall for me. Just because he was such a good, really legitimate mid-draft prospect. So I would go him first.
Yeah, I agree with you there. And you look at that position, you have Jalen Carter, obviously, you have Jordan Davis, you have Milton Williams. Those 3 have spots. After that, you have Marlon Tuipulotu, who has been around for a while, Moro Ojimo, who they liked last year as a rookie. So, all right, like already you're pretty full, but they could keep 6.
They could keep 6, and things happen. And, things happen in camp. Guy gets banged up, guy goes on IR, who knows? But hope that doesn't happen. But I think just his pedigree tells you that he has a shot. Now, if you ask me who's next, that's a good question. I'd probably say
AJ?
Could be.
Is it outrageous to think that maybe he outplays their late round draft picks?
Without seeing them, I guess it's possible. They seem to be pretty high on on Keegan.
It's hard to imagine him just outplaying Keegan, who has 3 years starting experience at Michigan.
Yeah.
He's probably going to look just solid.
Yeah. Although, yeah, no, you're right. It's hard to imagine, but it is possible.
How about the running back? Just because, like,
running, yeah.
If they want to keep 4, he is a different body type. He's a different, type of player than they have with the 3 we know are going to be on the team.
Yeah, and I could see him having a good camp. And running backs tend to get hurt, and he's got that Georgia thing going too for him. So I think he's probably got a better than no chance.
All right, let's take a break. We'll talk about Boston Scott leaving, and we'll look around the NFC East at the rest of the draft hauls and see how those other teams did.
You deserve a car that thrills you, a car that puts goosebumps on your goosebumps. At Nissan, we got everything from turbocharged SUVs to 100% electric vehicles that'll make your heart beat faster. Experience the thrill for yourself and shop your local Nissan store at nissanusa.com today.
Celebrity cook Steve Martorano brings his Italian-American cooking back home to Philly. Enjoy Martorano's Prime at Rivers Casino and Steve's famous meatballs with Sunday gravy, prime steaks, and more. Make reservations at Martorano's Prime on Open Table. Eagles-Giants games, Rube, will never be the same.
Yeah, I'll miss Boston Scott. He was a really good Eagle. I think the way I wrote it was he wasn't a great player, but he was a great Eagle. He did what he has to do. He never complained. He really was a leader in his own way. Just the way he worked, quiet presence, funny guy. I loved talking to him. He's really a wise, smart guy who always had a very well thought out opinion on a lot of things. And he was always fun to talk to. And he was a good player when he was asked to, when Miles was hurt, he was number 2 for a lot of that time. And he had some really good games, mainly against the Giants, but a couple others certainly. And I think before Jalen really emerged as such a great option at the goal line, Boston, I think that's one of the reasons he's not here. His strength is goal line and short yardage, and that's what Jalen does. So, he's not a guy that's going to get 20 carries, but he's it's almost unstoppable at those, second and goal from the 3. He just would find his way into the end zone because he had that low center of gravity, he had great vision and great balance. He was a really good goal line back, and I think that's where his future is. I mean, he scored 20 touchdowns as a part-time player, which tells you a lot. He averaged 4.4 per carry in his career, which is a solid number. He's got one of the longest rushing TDs in Eagles playoff history. Unfortunately, it came when they were down 32-0 in Tampa 2 years ago. 3 years ago, I guess now. But just a great guy, funny, kept everyone loose. I think the most impressive thing about Boston, like last year, his touches were almost non-existent. He's never complained, even when he was a part-time guy. He never complained, never had a bad word to say about anyone. He's just total pro and a good guy to have around. He's also 29, and I think one of the themes of this offseason is getting younger, and they've done that.
Yeah, once they drafted Will Shipley, I was not surprised to see them the next week Boston sign elsewhere. I thought maybe if they didn't
35 away.
What was that?
Even when they gave 35 away to Tyrion Davis Price, I think is his name. Once they gave 35 away to another running back, kind of. So
yeah, but if they don't draft a running back, I think there's a chance he returns.
Could be, yeah.
Because I mean, like if they don't draft a running back, who's the third guy on the roster?
Yeah, we'll never know, but I kind of feel like they were ready to move on, but maybe not.
Okay, well, I think the timing is just noteworthy to me that it kind of felt like the Mekhi Becton thing. Like you sign him right after the draft, I think was a pretty clear indication that had you drafted someone, you probably don't sign Mekhi Becton. Like right. If you drafted someone early, I think if they don't draft a running back, then maybe Boston Scott is back.
Maybe, or maybe. Kendall Milton, they're high on him. I don't know, but you could very well be right.
Or like the Rams too. Like if the Rams one of the running back in the draft, and then they don't get one, and then Boston Scott's available.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll miss Boston. Good guy, funny guy.
Yeah, and when we talk about Howie's, Howie's best moves, this wouldn't be one. But I mean, Howie got Boston Scott off the waiver wire. I think the Saints were trying to, wave him onto the practice squad, and Howie just claimed him at the end of the 2018 season. And he didn't play. He might have played briefly in one game.
He played in 2 games. He was on the Saints practice squad.
You're right. He signed him off the practice squad. You're right. He didn't sign him off the waiver wire. So they had cut him in August. He was on the practice squad, and then Howie signed him off their practice squad. You're right. So he was here for 6 years, which is a long time for anybody. So
Miles Sanders got drafted in the 2nd round, became a Pro Bowler, and left. And Boston was still here.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, he's here the same amount of time as Shady. So there's not a lot of running backs who've been here longer than Boston Scott. Deuce, Tom Woodschick, who's here like 9 years. There's a handful of them. Keith Byers was here 7 or 8 years. But it's a position where there's not a lot of continuity, and he was always there to, whether it was 2 carries or 4 carries. I always thought he's underutilized as a receiver. He's a really good receiver. And he caught a bunch of balls his first, I guess in 19 and 20, but then wasn't really a factor in that part of the game. But look, they'll be fine without him, but I'll miss him.
Yeah, and I'm starting to do my first 53-man roster projection. It's weird not just penciling him in.
Yeah.
And the running back spot I mentioned earlier, they might just go with 3. Last year they went with 4 and then use the 4th guy. So I don't know. I think they might just get by with the 3 this year: Saquon Barkley, Kenny Gainwell, and now Will Shipley.
Rashad Penny's available.
He is.
One other thing about Boston, the Eagles cut him twice in 19. So he's one of those guys who, never had anything guaranteed. He was on the street a couple of times. He was on the practice squad here, I believe.
Okay.
They cut him and put him on the practice squad. But yeah, I think 3 is a good number of running backs. If you have a guy you like on the practice squad, good way to save a roster spot.
Yeah, especially if you have one guy who's clearly the guy
who's going to get 25. Yeah.
Yeah, the last few years they've kind of had more of a rotation. We don't expect that this year.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a rotation between Saquon and Barkley.
All right, let's go through the NFC East drafts, and we'll just go through Commanders, then Giants, then Cowboys in the order of when they picked in the first round. So let's go through the Commanders. They obviously get their quarterback, number 2 overall, Jaden Daniels. In the 2nd round, they get Johnny Newton, the defensive tackle from Illinois. They get Mike Sanderstill, the nickel cornerback from Michigan, and they get Ben Sinnott, the tight end from Kansas State. In the 3rd round,
the picks they got from the Eagles.
Yeah.
In exchange for 40.
Yes. In the 3rd round, Brandon Coleman, the offensive tackle from TCU. Luke McCaffrey, the receiver from Rice. In the 5th round, Jordan McGee, linebacker from Temple. 5th round, Dominique Hampton, safety from Washington. And then the 7th round, Javante Jean-Baptiste, the edge player from Notre Dame. You're right. The 50 and 53 were the Eagles' picks initially before they made the rare interdivision trade.
Yeah, although any trade's not rare for Howie. He made a few of those. Made a trade with Dallas last year, I think.
It feels like those trades didn't happen 10 years ago.
I think you're right. Yeah. I think now it's just like, hey, if we like the trade, we're going to make it. Certainly not worried about Washington, I guess. I think that's probably what Howie would tell you with some truth serum. I think it's going to come down to Jaden Daniels and whether he can finally be their franchise quarterback, which they really haven't had since, gosh, I don't know. Mark Rippon, who was the last really good? He was okay. Joe Theismann. I mean, they've just had a series of, I think their last 20 starting quarterbacks won a total of 0 playoff games, which is, it's nuts. So this draft, I think when we look at it in a couple of years, is come down to what Jaden Daniels is able to do. And I think he's going to be pretty good.
Yeah,
And
how did you? We haven't really talked about the quarterbacks because we knew the Eagles didn't need one. But out of the six quarterbacks, really, what did you think about Jaden Daniels?
well, I like Drake May more, I believe, from what I could see. I think it's close. Um, I'm not crazy about the Michigan kid. Uh,
McCarthy.
I think he's maybe more of a product of what was around him than any of the others. But obviously, there's, something to be said about never losing. That just wins every game. Is something to be said for that. The late guys, I just don't know. Penix and Nix, I just don't know. It's really rare to hit on a first round quarterback outside the top 10 picks, outside the top like 5 or 6 picks. But I like the first three, and I think they all have a chance to be really good.
Yeah, Daniels. I understand why he was the pick for Washington. I think the frame does scare me a little bit. It's a position where, they drafted RG3 and they saw him go through all the injury issues. I hope that doesn't happen to this kid.
Yeah, they also kind of did RG3 a disservice by playing him, when he was already hurt. And yeah, Jane Daniels is what, 6'4", 205. I still remember that playoff game. RG3 could barely walk, and they just left him in there, getting sacked play after play. You would think with new ownership, new coaching staff, they'll take better care of him. But you're right. I mean, it's look, any quarterback you just don't know, but I think he's going to be a good player.
Mm-hmm.
And I like their second round pick. I mean, I like Johnny Newton. So
yeah, and they had 3 second rounders. The way it shook out, you're right. I like Johnny Newton. I mean, you look at their defensive tackles. That's a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah,
I like Sanders still. He's a nickel only, but as long as you know that, I have no problem taking a nickel only in the second round.
No, I mean if you have 12 positions on defense, it's one of the 12 most important. So it's really become kind of as important as, maybe not quite as important as your outside corners, but really close.
Mm-hmm.
And they're playing almost as much because everyone's playing 3 wides. So
yeah, don't love the Kansas State tight end. He wouldn't have been my favorite at 53, but I understand why they did that. Luke McCaffrey, I'm like, I almost said lukewarm, and I didn't mean to make that pun. I think he's okay. I think there were other receivers in that area that I liked more. Obviously, he has the name and the pedigree, but I don't love that pick either.
Mm-hmm. Temple linebacker.
Jordan McGee goes not that far before Jeremiah Trotter Jr., which a year ago, if you told me Jordan McGee gets drafted before Trot Jr., I'd tell you no way in heck. But McGee had a nice season, and I wonder if he was on the Eagles' radar. We know they were looking linebacker in that area.
You have to think that, that he was. If Sean Desai was still here, probably take him, right? The Temple connection, but yeah, it'll be. I mean, Temple guys always seem to become good pros. Temple players very often become good pros, even the ones that played on their really bad teams.
Yeah, sometimes.
Yeah, so
pretty good example of a second rounder not working out here.
Oh, Jaquan Jarrett.
Yeah.
I didn't say everyone. I said often.
Yeah. All right. Giants draft. 6 overall, Malik Neighbors from LSU. Then in the second round, Tyler Nubin, safety from Minnesota. Third round, Andrew Phillips, the cornerback from Kentucky. Fourth round, Theo Johnston, tight end from Penn State. Fifth round, Tyrone Tracy Jr., the running back from Purdue. And the sixth round, Dario Muasau, linebacker from UCLA. What'd you make of 6 overall, Malik Neighbors? They say, yeah, we're going to go with a receiver. We have our quarterback.
Well, I think they tried to move up and take a quarterback, but they couldn't get to 3. So Neighbors will make Daniel Jones better, but I mean, I still don't think Daniel Jones will be their quarterback after this year. I haven't taken a quarterback in my 2025 mock draft. I like Neighbors, though. I mean, I think get him with a good quarterback, and I think he's going to be a really, really good player. I just don't know if he has that yet. It's a shame to have Daniel Jones as your rookie quarterback. I mean, he's just not that good.
I agree with you.
But I like the player.
It's a tricky place to be as an NFL team when you're kind of you're in the middle with a quarterback there. When you have a Kirk Cousins and you're going, well, he's good. Is he good enough? Probably not. He's not elite. Can you win with him? Maybe, until you have to pay him. Now you're overpaying a slightly above average quarterback. It's tricky.
Yeah, and now you have the added, I guess, baggage of Daniel Jones knows they were trying to draft a quarterback. He knows they were trying to get up to 3, and Patriots said no, and now you're the quarterback again. So it's a tough position. I wouldn't even put him in the same category as Kirk. I think Kirk Cousins is a lot better than Daniel Jones. He's also a lot older. Not that much older, really. I mean, Daniel Jones is, they've given him a lot of chances. He won the one playoff game and then lost to the Eagles. I think that's the only winning season he's had. He's just, if you rank the quarterbacks in the league, you wouldn't be able to rank the rookies, but he'd be really close to the bottom for me. So, yeah, Malik Neighbors, you have this really talented kid, and I just don't know if they have anyone to get him the ball, but they will next year.
What do you make of the other picks? I like that Andrew Phillips in the 3rd round. I thought he was going to be a 2nd round pick, like a late 2nd. He goes to the 3rd. I like that Theo Johnson pick in the 4th round.
Yeah, I like Theo Johnson. I thought he was a guy the Eagles might go after with their need for a tight end too. They got 2 young corners now who they haven't had good corners, so that's an interesting pick. And you're right. I was surprised he was there at 70.
Yeah, he's a nickel only, most likely, just because of his stature.
Yeah. What do you think of Theo Johnson, though? Is he a guy who can come in and contribute from the jump?
Yeah, I like Theo Johnson in the 4th more than I like Ben Sinnott in the 2nd.
Yeah.
Like I think there's less of a delta there, and I think it's like more palatable to take a Theo Johnson in the 4th.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Okay.
If you're gonna take a tight end in the 2nd round, he better be really, really special.
Yeah, and maybe I'm wrong about Kansas State kid, but it was a little high for me.
Yeah.
All right, the Cowboys draft. They trade down from 25 to 29. They take Tyler Guyton, the offensive tackle from Oklahoma. 2nd round, Marshawn Nealon from Western Michigan. 3rd round, Cooper Beebe, the guard from Kansas State. 3rd round, Marist Liafau from Notre Dame, the linebacker. 5th round, Kalen Carson, cornerback from Wake Forest. 6th round, Ryan Flourney, wide receiver from Southeast Missouri State. 7th round, Nathan Thomas, offensive tackle from Louisiana. 7th round, Justin Rogers, defensive tackle from Auburn.
I know you're not crazy about Guyton. Tell me why.
I think, especially for the Eagles and where they were, I thought he's clearly a tackle only. I think he is raw, and I don't think he has the upside of some of those other 1st round tackles. Like I thought, there was a time where we were talking about him and J.C. Latham in the same breath. Yeah. Latham goes 7th and Guyton goes 29th. Like that's more indicative of the difference there. But obviously, like Amarius Mims goes before him. I thought Mims was a better developmental prospect than Guyton. I think there's more upside. I think Guyton's he has the athleticism. I don't know if he's going to be able to anchor as a tackle in the league. At 29, I'm okay with it, but I thought there were better 1st round options. And if I were the Cowboys, I probably would have tried to trade up instead of trade down and go get an Amarius Mims.
Yeah, Mims went a little before I thought he would. So that would have been a big trade up for them. But he barely started more games. He only started, I think, 14 games where Mims started 8. You got these 2 guys who haven't played that much. But, yeah, we'll see. I think Nealon's a guy that's going to help him. I think that's a pretty good pick.
Yeah, some people are really high. Nealon was an interesting prospect in this pre-draft process. Some people really loved him. Some people were like, I don't really see it. So kind of fascinating to see what he does there. Obviously, a lot of the attention is going to be on Micah Parsons. So if he can get free here and there and win a one-on-one on occasion, then maybe he has a chance to have a good rookie season. I like that they went through the lines. I think BB's like solid. I know Barrett will be happy about a Kansas State lineman going to the Cowboys. He's probably furious, but BB was a guy I thought maybe the Eagles would be interested in.
Yeah. Yeah. They didn't take a skill player till I believe the 6th round with the Southeastern Missouri State receiver. So yeah, the emphasis was on both lines, 2 offensive linemen, 3 offensive linemen total, I guess, and 2 defensive linemen and a linebacker.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I don't know if Cowboys fans. I don't want to say anything mean about Cowboys fans, but I don't think they'll like this draft.
Yeah, how would you rank these drafts in terms of just what you like? We're not asking to grade, but the 4 in the division, who do you think had the best draft to the worst draft?
It's so hard to say. I would put. I like what the Giants did. I think Washington had an okay draft. I mean, it's going to obviously come down to the QB, which is a big question mark. I like what the Eagles did. I'd probably go Eagles 1, Washington 2, Giants 3, Cowboys 4, something like that.
I'm close to that. I think I go Eagles, Giants, Washington, Dallas, and Washington. You're right. It really just hinges on the quarterback there. But I like their other picks. I like their 2nd round pick, Johnny Newton. After that, I don't know. I think there were a few players that I probably wouldn't have taken in those spots. So that's why I have them below the Giants, which was a smaller class. But
right.
Yeah, I like Phillips where they drafted him. I like Theo Johnson where they drafted him. So I'd probably give them a slight advantage over the Commanders.
Okay.
That's all. That's all I got.
Fun time of year.
It is a fun time of year. It won't be long until we're like at OTA practices.
It won't be long until we get the schedule, and that's always a really fun day. I think it might be like the 10th or something. I don't think we have an official date yet. I know people are like researching like what shows are in the listings, which night, and everything. But it'll be in the next couple of weeks, and that's always a fun day. We get the schedule. You start making flight reservations. We'll do an emergency pod.
I don't start making flight reservations. My evil twin starts making flight reservations that I will one day hate the schedules that I put myself on, the 6 a.m. flights, the red eyes coming back. Yeah.
Dave's like, oh, this 5:15 flight sounds really good. It'll get me back in time. And then that morning comes along. Dave's wake-up call is like 3 a.m. on his phone. And
yeah, it's not fun.
What am I doing? I don't miss that. I do not miss that.
By the time people listen to this, they might already know what happened in the basketball game, but what do you think happens with Sixers-Knicks?
I think the Sixers win tonight, and I think it's going to make for a fascinating Game 7. I really think they're going to win at home. I wish it wasn't at 9 o'clock, but that's the NBA these days. It's all about the almighty buck. I don't even know if that's why it's at 9 o'clock, but I assume it is.
It's about the Bucks?
The Bucks. Bucks Sixers would be a really interesting series. Doc versus Nick Nurse. But that game, I think it's tough for the Knicks to bounce back from that. I think that's what are the, like, you know how they do the win, like what's the percentage of teams going to win at any point? Mm-hmm. Sixers were down 6 points with 28 seconds to go. And they were obviously down 3 with when they inbounds with, I don't know, with 15 seconds left. What percentage is that shot that Maxey hit? I mean, it's a 35-footer. What's that, a 15% shot for him? So anyway, I think it's tough for the Knicks to bounce back from that. And I can't wait.
All right. Well, hope everyone has a good weekend. Enjoy the weather out there.
You usually ask me if there's anything I have to add, and you didn't this time. And there is.
Okay, go ahead.
Dave just closes his eyes like, I can't believe he won't shut up. I'm hosting a music festival this weekend. It's called Sing Us Home. It's the second annual. It's in Manayunk at Venice Island, which is that little long, narrow strip of land right across the canal from downtown Manayunk. So it's like a 5-minute walk from the train station. And there's about 20 bands playing. The big headliner on Saturday is the Jayhawks. But there's some great bands playing. Tim Barry's playing. Laura Jane Grace is playing. A band that I've been listening to a lot called Strike Anywhere is playing. Fire in the Radio. Sarah Shook and the Disarmers are playing, who we saw in Cleveland at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Remember that?
I do.
We saw them outside the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2018, maybe, or something. So she's playing. They're playing a set. Space Cadet. There's a lot of bands. Amethyst Kia, who played in our building, opening for The Who. She's playing a set. So it's going to be a lot of fun. It goes Friday night till Sunday, like afternoonish. It's a fun day. There's all kinds of food trucks and vendors and all kinds of cool stuff going on. Face painting for kids or for you, if you want to come by, you can get your face painted. So looking forward to it. It'll be a lot of fun. Hopefully I see some of you guys out there.
What are your responsibilities for the weekend?
Well, I like introduce the bands. I stand up there and say, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to Jayhawks.
Now, let's talk about the form here a little bit. Do you get into it? Do you give a good, like a rousing intro?
Yeah, I try to bring some energy to it.
Okay.
And kind of like I bring to the podcast. No, I try to bring some energy because there's, people, there's a lot of people there. Yeah, a couple thousand last year. Weather is a little iffy on Sunday, especially. So I'm not sure how that'll go. But yeah, I think, you don't want to just get up there and be boring. So yeah. So you try
to my life there.
Try to be quick and to the point and bring some energy. Yeah.
All right. Well, have fun. If anyone goes out there, be sure to say hi to Ruben and enjoy yourselves. If you enjoy the Eagle Eye podcast, you know what to do. Please rate and subscribe wherever you get your pods. If you're watching on YouTube, please click that like button, subscribe there as well. Rookie camp this weekend. We'll be back with you next week to break that down and a bunch of other stuff going forward. That's it for Ruben. I'm Dave. This has been Eagle Eye presented by Nissan. We'll talk to you soon.